So I'm proper excited this morning. I'm off to see if I can catch a trout. And notice I use the word trout, not plural, because I don't want to push my luck. And it's the end of April, getting towards the end of April, and there's quite a lot of buzzers around. And buzzer fishing can be quite exciting because the fish tend to throw caution to the wind, and they will take a buzzer, which can be really tiny, with such force that they can snap your leader. So you suddenly feel a tug, and then you think, oh, it came off. And if at that point my advice would be always retrieve and check you've still got a fly, because I've had that happen and I've been casting for sometimes several minutes and thought, hang on, I better just check the fly. So it can be quite exciting, and I'm still debating whether to just use a point fly, because when they just tend to go bang, or whether to use maybe a couple of droppers. The benefit of that is that if they're not particularly taking the fly that's on your point fly, and you keep changing it, it can take quite some time until you find the fly that they're interested in. So it depends. When I get there, if the water's nice and still and there's no or very little wind, I might go with the dropper, because when I cast, I tend to find that with droppers, in any kind of wind, I get knots, and I'm not a very patient fisherman. I know that sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but time spent undoing knots is, for me, not a productive time. So we'll see. Decisions, but we've got to get there first. So I'm going to concentrate on the driving and speak to you again when we get there. It was rain. So the weather conditions are, I would say, it's cool. It's about 17 degrees. So yeah, it's quite misty. I mean, it's not misty enough not to fish, because I can comfortably cast and see the end of my line with the distance that we've got here. But it's so the temperature is showing 7 degrees outside. So it's not hot. It's very overcast. It's quite misty, really. So I would imagine that the water temperature's going to be nice and cool. Whether there's fly life around, I would think so. It's not cold.
The water.
The question really is
to say, it's looking really good. It's calm. I always say this. It's calm, and then of course 10 minutes time and you get out on the lake, it's blowing a gale, but it does really look nice and calm. It does look really calm. I'm really looking forward to fishing. A couple of anglers out there, but it's looking good. Now I'm really looking forward to seeing if I can catch a trout on a buzzer. I've got a box full of buzzers, different sizes, shapes, colours, materials, but of course the tricky question is, which one are they after, if any? It's so calm. I don't think I'm going to bother with the getting the grapples out. I'll just drop that over the side, and I'm not even sure we need that much anchor line out. It's just so calm. It's going to be actually quite a change. So let's get sat down. So I got my leader on with the 2 droppers, and it's really a question of which I'm going to use. I might use something fairly big on the point, so that is quite big. That's black with a bit of a hackle on it, so I might put that on the point fly if I can ever find out where the end of the line is. There it is, something like that. So that's a bit smaller. It's black, but it's got a bit of red, like zebra, tiger, stripy things in it. And I must remember to grease the leader. So what I'm going to be doing, because it's so calm, it's one of those glorious days where you can actually cast all round the boat instead of having to cast with the wind at your back. And then I'm going to go for like a really small one, a tiddly willy one. Now whether I can ever actually tie this is another matter. So they literally are all around, and I've already managed to get hooked up. It's pretty impressive, Len. How'd you do that? I've got a knack for it. Look at that. Hadn't even cast out and it's already come back like that. Right, so I've just cast about 3 or 4 rod lengths out. This is really just about getting the line straight and getting myself sorted out than actual serious fishing. And because I'm buzzer fishing, I'm probably just going to let them float there. You could cut the tension with a knife. Come on, fishy, fishy. Catching a trout. Take 2. And that wasn't supposed to happen. Well, hello, it's me again. Fishless Len, I'm calling myself today. It's not the end of the world, I've only been here half an hour. So I'm changing yet again, so I'm going with that on the point. And then I've got a couple of little sort of nymphy dial backs on the 2 droppers. So not looking like a dial buck is flavour of the month. So it's time to try again. I suppose this is the reason why you have a fly box or fly boxes with hundreds of flies in, is that hopefully somewhere there is one that they're interested in. Right, it's more of a wet fly. Never mind. We're all going to be wet in a minute. Okay, out we go. Get back on the bike, as the saying goes. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Right, all this line in the boat, it needs to be in the water, come on. Well, welcome back to another episode of Not Catching with Len, in which the only thing I've caught is the line. I shouldn't have said I haven't caught anything, so look at that. managed to catch my own line. So the only action on this boat so far has been that I've removed a huge quilted waistcoat that I was wearing, so I now probably look thinner, and I certainly feel a bit cooler, but I still haven't caught a fish. I'm starting to lose the will to live. There are fish rising everywhere. I've tried black flies, black and red flies, green flies, brown flies, and I'm currently on my third variation of a hare's ear nymph, and absolutely no interest whatsoever. It makes you want to go and catch some roach, or not. What? They literally just, I can see them coming out of the water. So I've put a hare's ear nymph on, and I've put some gink on it, so it is literally on the surface. That's why they call it fishing and not catching. On the basis that the glass is always half full, the one thing I can probably say, with the amount of trout activity around the boat, is that if you don't get a take in the first 3 or 4 casts, you need to change fly, because they're definitely there and they're definitely taking something. I've gone through a bit of a nymph phase, thinking, well, they're obviously nymphing, so I'll try different types of nymphs. No. So I've now got a little black fly on with a black hackle and a little silver wrapping around the body, and it's having the same success as every other fly I've tried. I'm struggling to think of a time when I have found fly fishing so frustrating, because they're there and they're feeding, and I can't work out what it is. Right, let's change the fly. I've taken the droppers off because they're not working. Back to the drawing board. Right, I think I might finally have got the hang of it. So I tried using what was almost a dry fly. It was brown, it had a big hackle on it, and I fished it dry, and I could see it. It was so big, it was like a float, because the water's quite calm, and nothing. And then I thought, well, I'll try and sink it. So I wet it, it wouldn't sink, and I thought, well, maybe I'll put some of the, because I've got this stuff called gink, which is a fly floatant. I've got another bottle which is a, I need to watch what I'm doing, which is a, makes it sink. So I put a bit of that. It's not ready for the net yet. Or is it? It's got its head up, so it might be. And I can just see the fly right in the scissors. Come to daddy. It's a nice fish. It is a nice fish, look at that. Steady. And there's the fly. Very lightly hooked. Right, let's get him back. Right, that was exciting. Let's get myself sorted out. I don't know why when you catch a fish, even though you've done it many times, the whole boat seems to go to pot. Right, let's try again. greatest cast. In fact, it was a terrible cast. But there are fish within that distance, I'm sure. I can't remember now if I actually did anything like a slow retrieve. Right, in other news, I've changed my leader. I've changed flies so many times that the new leader I put on, I'd almost got down to the first dropper and it all looked a bit messy, so I've taken that off and I've just put 6.5 pound line straight through. I've measured off about 10-12 foot, so I've got a nice length of line between the fly line and the fly, because the water is actually quite clear, and well, you want to give yourself every chance, don't you? So unfortunately I can just see the fly on the surface, and that wasn't the plan. It was I've put fly floatant grease on the leader, but the idea was that the actual fly was supposed to be under the surface, because they're starting to nymph again, just come up out of the water, and I want this to be just in the surface layer. I don't think I've ever been in a target rich environment like this. There are fish just sipping the surface everywhere, and the really frustrating thing is my fly's right in the middle of them and they're not interested. So that one I caught first cast after changing flies, one thinks maybe that was a bit lucky. Right, well, I just found out why they weren't interested in that fly. It's come off. I obviously didn't tie it properly, so there was like a curly bit at the end and no fly. In a weird kind of way, the fact that there are trout all over the place, and literally one or two of them have just kind of surfed over my line, you kind of think, okay, I don't have to leave anything on here for more than a few seconds, because if they're not interested, they're not interested. So I'm working my way through my fly box. I'm using flies that I didn't even know I had. Right, that I put on a little black natty thing that I didn't even know I had in the fly box. I cast out and I literally watched the line go. Please don't tell me I've lost it. No, I think it's still there. Whew, so it's a little black natty thing, and it literally landed on the water and went whew, but it didn't connect. There are trout everywhere. I've used so many flies that I'm probably using flies for the second time, but I just can't remember. So I'm back to using buzzers, no good. So desperate times for different measures. It's time for the squirmy wormy. Can't believe they're going to be interested in that, but frankly I don't care, because I'm as close to crying on camera as I've ever been. Biggest fish I've ever hooked in here. You're not going to find me complaining. Ooh, lucky. It's bigger than I thought it was. Well, that's very annoying. So I've been using a squirmy wormy. I caught one. And then a bit later on I hooked one and it was on for a few seconds and it got off.
I felt a bit guilty about catching a trout on one of those, but I've got another fly on. I've got absolutely no idea what it is, can't remember. It's yeah, it's one that doesn't catch fish, that's all I know. I've now got trout jumping around me. I wonder if Mick Jagger realised that when he was singing "You Make a Grown Man Cry," he was actually talking about someone trout fishing. I think I'm literally down to my last couple of casts now. Well, as promised, we are heading home with our tail between our legs. That has got to go down as one of the most frustrating fishing trips I can imagine. I mean, how I didn't foul hook a fish, I don't know. I mean, the number of times I was bringing the fly in through fish and I could see them, you know, eating stuff. There's one just over there, just sort of tailing, topping and tailing. And what kept me going for so long, I think, was I thought to myself, you know, if I get the right fly here, I could actually empty this lake. Not that I would, but you just think they're obviously obsessed with something, and if I can find out what it is. But as I've said before, there's several people fishing around here, and I've only seen 2 fish caught, apart from mine. I did lose one as well. So I met another angler who said he caught one on a fab. I don't know what a fab is. It sounded like something foamy. So I might have to investigate that. But generally, I think everyone was finding it very frustrating. I just don't know what I could have done differently. So the main thing is I was out in the sunshine. So we'll take that as a positive, and I'll put all my 365 flies back in the fly box and probably need to go on in search of a fab. Every day is school day.